This video is all about the power series. Good day! Today we are going to discuss the radius and interval of convergence of a power series. To start with, I have different examples to prove the theorem number 3. So in theorem number 3, it says there that if the absolute value of x minus c is less than r, it will converge. But if the absolute value of x minus c is greater than r, then it will diverge. So, ang gagamitin natin dito is the first statement. So, where x is equal to c, or our constant. So let's start with our first example. We have here, if the series of x minus 2 raised to n over n plus 1 times 3 raised to n from as n is equal to 0 to infinity, dito ang gagamitin natin ay ratio test. So, we have here the limit. Tanda pa ang ratio test. X minus 2 raised to n plus 1 over n plus 1 plus 1 times 3 raised to n plus 1. And then, ita-times natin siya, or i-multiply sa reciprocal ng given. So, we have n plus 1 times 3 raised to n over x minus 2 raised to n. To solve this, we are going to break down the factors or the numbers that can be na pwede nating i-break. And dito meron tayong x minus 2 raised to n, x minus 2 raised to 1, tapos so meron tayong x minus 2 raised to n dito, so cancel the x minus 2 raised to n, and then we have n plus 1 here, n plus 1, and then the 3 raised to n. This will become 3 raised to n and 3 raised to 1. So 3 raised to n will be cancelled. As n approaches infinity. So the limit as n approaches infinity, we have sa numerator natin ay meron tayong x minus 2 raised to 1. So hindi na natin nilalagay yon. And then sa denominator ay, since may 1 pa dito and may 3 pa dito, 1 times 3 will be 3. As the limit of n approaches infinity, absolute value of x minus 2 over 3. So, hindi pa dito natatapos ang lahat. Ilalabas natin yung 1/3. Leave natin yung x minus 2. So, we have 1/3 is the limit n approaches infinity of the absolute value of x minus 2. Kukunin natin ngayon yung interval of convergence ng ating series na ito. So, isulat natin yung sagot dito. bago natin burahin, we have 1/3 limit and approaches infinity of the absolute value of x minus 2. Para mahanap natin ang interval of convergence, so sinasabi dito na kapag ang rho is less than 1, ang rho kapag the absolute value of x minus 2 is less than 3. Here, the absolute value of x minus 2 is less than 3. So, to compute the interval of convergence, panggigitnaan lang natin yung x minus 2 and then 3. Since positive dito, lalagyan natin sa kabila ng negative 3. So, to cancel yung kasamang constant ng variable na x, so we have to add 2 here, add 2 there. So we have, ang natira ay x is less than 5 but greater than 1. So our interval of convergence is -1 and 5. So, pakitandaan natin, are. Kasi gagamitin natin siya to measure the series or to prove that the series, if the series converge or diverge using the ratio test. I is equal to -1 and 5. Para matest natin kung ang interval of convergence na ito is kung nag-converge nga ba dito sa series natin or nag-diverge. So, the values of this will serve as the values of x. Isa-substitute lang natin siya sa value ng x to the given. Let's test for x is equal to -1. So the series as n is equal to 0 to infinity of x minus 2 raised to n. This is our given. N plus 1 times 3 raised to n. So we're going to plug in -1 value to x. So we have -1 minus 2 raised to n over n plus 1 times 3 raised to n. And then -1 minus 2 is -3 raised to n over n plus 1 times 3 raised to n. So, itong numerator natin, pwede natin siyang i-breakdown pa into the series n is equal to 0. Don't forget 0 is equal to 0. Infinity. This will become, so we have 1 here, -1 raised to n and 3 raised to n. And then the n plus 1 times 3 raised to n. So cancelling the 3 raised to n, we have as n is equal to 0 to infinity, we have -1 raised to n over n plus 1. So as you can see, the answer that we got is an alternating series. Okay, because of the negative 1 raised to n, it's alternating. So we have here n is equal to 0 to infinity of negative 1 raised to n over n plus 1 is equal to, so if we plug 0, we got here 1 over 1. So it will become 1. And then the next value will be, we have 1 here. So negative 1 over 2. Negative 1 over 2. And then for the third one, we have plus, so plug in the 2 for n, we have 1 over 3, positive. It's alternating. Did you observe that? So when we have an alternating series, we can say that the value for x is equal to negative 1, the series converge. We have brackets here, and pag nag-diverge, we'll put a parenthesis. So let's try the other values of x. For x is equal to 5. So we have here the series of n is equal to 0 to infinity of x minus 2 raised to n over n plus 1 times 3 raised to n. So plug in natin yung 5 sa x. So we have 5 minus 2 raised to n over n plus 1 times 3 raised to n. And then 5 minus 2 is equal to 3 raised to n, and n plus 1 times 3 raised to n. So cancel the 3 raised to n. You've got the answer as the series of n is equal to 0 to infinity of 1 over n plus 1. So this is our answer. And 1 over n plus 1, it will diverge. Why? Because the following infinite values of this series would be 1. So plug in 0, we have 1. We have, if we have 1 here, 1 plus 1 is 2, so 1/2. We have 2 here, 2 plus 1 is 3, we have 1/3. And so on and so forth. So this series diverge. Again, if it diverge, this will have a parenthesis. We identified the interval of convergence. And if the value of x is equal to negative 1, the series converge. If we have x is equal to 5, the series diverge. What about its radius? Let's place it here. Radius. It says that 1 over r, the absolute value of x minus c, is less than r. So in this situation, the series will converge as x is equal to c, or the constant value. And then our radius here will be equal to This is what we got. We are going to look this answer will look like this. So I have here 1 over 3. The absolute value of x minus 2 is less than. So in here r, so the value of r is 3. So our radius would be 3. Let's take another example na ibinigay sa atin ng ating professor, si Sir Richmond Jet Marasigan. Nasagutan sa ating midterm. And that would be the series as n is equal to 1 to infinity of negative 1 raised to n times n over 4 raised to n times x plus 3 raised to n. So, let's do it. The limit as n approaches infinity of negative 1 raised to n plus 1, the absolute value, over 4 raised to n plus 1, oh, I forget the n plus 1, times x plus 3 raised to n plus 1. So, dito, para hindi tayo masyadong malito, isama na natin ito sa numerator. Ganun din naman yan. So, let's rewrite it. I have here negative 1 raised to n plus 1 times n plus 1 times 3 plus times x plus 3 raised to n plus 1 over 4 raised to n plus 1. And then, ita-times natin siya sa reciprocal ng given 4 raised to n over, you have negative 1 raised to n times x plus 3 raised to n. And don't forget the absolute value. So, paano ba mag-breakdown? Yung sinasabi ni Ma'am Michelle na breakdown na yan. So, ganito po iyon. In negative 1 raised to n plus 1, breakdown natin siya into negative 1 raised to n times negative 1 raised to 1. And then, times n plus 1 times x plus 3 raised to n times, i-breakdown din natin siya, x plus 3 raised to 1 over 4 raised to n times 4 raised to 1. Nakuha na ba? Pag-breakdown, sanay na kayo dyan. Sure. Negative 1 raised to n times n, then x plus 3. Kaya natin ginagawa yung breakdown na yan ng mga expressions natin para makancel natin yung mga hindi na kailangang mga bagay-bagay. So, dito makakancel natin ang negative 1 raised to n, the x plus 3 raised to n, and the 4 raised to n. Ayan. May nakaligtaan pa ba? Wala naman na siguro. We have here the limit of n as n approaches infinity, the absolute value of. So, nagtira sa atin ay negative n plus 1. So, yung negative na lang natin yung negative 1 raised to 1. Same value lang. And then the x plus 3 raised to 1. Huwag na natin isulat yung raised to 1. Over, wala naman na natira dito. And then may 4n pa dun. So, 4 times n. Here, 4 and then n. Okay? So, as what we always do, so we have here, ilalabas natin tong x plus 3 doon. So, x plus 3, the absolute value of x plus 3 as the limit of n approaches infinity of, since kukunin natin yung absolute value ng negative n plus 1 over 4n, so magiging positive na siya. N plus 1 over 4 times n. And then, we have x plus 3 times the limit as n approaches infinity of n plus 1 over 4 times. So, meron na tayo dito ngayon. As we plug in the infinity here, this will go to infinity. The n will go to infinity. So, we've left the 1/4. Then, the x plus 3. So, let's write here what we've got. We have 1/4 times x plus 3. So, katulad na sinabi ko kanina, sa pagkuha natin ng interval of convergence, para malaman natin kung nag-diverge ba siya or nag-converge into the original series. So, we have here this one. So, if the row is this, if the row is less than 1, we have x plus 3, the absolute value of x plus 3 is less than 4. And ganyan lagi pag ang row is less than 1. So, kapag ganito yung expression na natin, nag-converge siya. And then, if we were going to find the interval of convergence, we have x plus 3 less than 4. And then sa kabila is greater than negative 4. Since it's positive here, we're going to negative there. So, to cancel this 3 na kasama ng ating x na variable, we have 2 minus 3 para makancel siya. So, minus 3 sa kabila, minus 3 din sa kabila. So, nakuha natin is x is less than 4 minus 3 is 1. And then greater than negative 7. Interval of convergence is equal to negative 7 and 1. Let's test if it will converge or if it will diverge. So let's take x is equal to negative 7. So diretso plug in na lang natin. So we have n is equal to 1 to infinity. We have negative 1 raised to n times n over 4 raised to n. So, dito naman natin siya substitute. So, we have negative 7. Here we have x, so negative 7 plus 3 raised to n. What will happen next? So we have to solve this. Negative 7 plus 3. So we have negative 1 raised to n times n over 4 raised to n times negative 7 plus 3 will be negative 4 raised to n. Again, paano nga tayo mag-breakdown ito? We have negative 1 raised to n. Ito yan. And then 4 raised to n. So, makukuha nating series ay as n is equal to 1 to infinity, we got negative 1 raised to n times n over 4 raised to n times negative 1 raised to n times 4 raised to n. Let's erase this. We have cancel the 4 raised to n. And ang natira sa atin is negative 1 raised to n times negative 1 raised to n times n. So, dito, itong negative 1 raised to n and negative 1 raised to n, ang magiging value niya is negative 1 raised to 2 times n, which will be equal to 1. So, our series for x is equal to 7. Our series n is equal to 1 will be, so ito ay 1, so we have n. So, if we were to know the values of the series, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. So, it will diverge. This will diverge. Next, let's test the value as x, the series as x is equal to 1. So, diretso plug in ulit natin. We have negative 1 raised to n times n over 4 raised to n times, plug natin yung 1 sa x. So, 1 plus 3 raised to n. So, this will become 1 plus 3 is 4. So, we have negative 1 raised to n times n over 4 raised to n times 4 raised to n. Cancel the 4 raised to n. We have left n is equal to 1, infinity, negative 1 raised to n times n. So, yun yung nakuha nating series. Where x is equal to 1. In which, ang value ng series na ito ay does not exist. In this case, the power series will not converge for either endpoint. Let us now move on for our last topic, which is representation of a power series as a function. Let's recall the geometric series. So we have the summation of, or the series, n is equal to 0 to infinity of a times r raised to n. Remember that. And ito is equal to a over 1 minus r. So, geometric series yan where the absolute value of r is less than 1. So, kapag ito ang absolute value ng r is greater than or equal to 1, it will diverge. So, here, it will converge. Now, if we take a is equal to 1 and r is equal to x, so this will become, or the whole will become the series as n is equal to 0 to infinity of r raised to n, since a is equal to 1, so it will become r. Only matitira na lang is r, which is equal to 1 over, since a is 1, and then the r is equal to x, so 1 minus x. Where dito naman, the absolute value of x is less than 1 para mag-converge din. And then, turning this thought, we can say that we can represent the function. Turning this thought, we can see that we can represent the function as f of x is equal to 1 over 1 minus x. So, ito yung representation ng function. And then, sa power series naman, we have the summation of n is equal to 0 to infinity of x raised to n. Since ang x natin is, kinuha lang natin yung series, x and then raised to n, where the absolute value of x is less than 1. For that series to converge, we are able to represent the function is equal to 1 over 1 minus x by the power series 1 plus x squared plus x cubed plus, and so on and so forth, when the absolute value of x is less than 1. So let's take an example. First, we will going to use the power series to represent each function of the following. So we have to find the interval of convergence. First, we have the f of x is equal to 1 over 1 plus x cubed. So, sa pagsasolve natin ng function para maging power series, lagi nating tandaan na if we have the series as n is equal to 0 to infinity of r raised to n, it will be equal to 1 over 1 minus x. So, dito, etong function natin is gagawin natin kamukha nito. So, paano yun? 1 over 1. Itong positive, pwede siyang negative times negative. So, minus negative x cube. So, same na siya. Ang value ng x natin is negative x cube. So, sa power series, kung i-convert natin ito sa power series, we have kukunin lang natin yung value ng x, which is this one, and then raised to n. So, dito sa ating givens, the series n is equal to 0 to infinity. So, our x here is negative x cubed raised to n. This is the power series of this function. And in this series, we have, if we were to plug in the values of n from 0, so we have 1, negative x cubed, it's alternating, plus x raised to 6, minus x raised to 9, plus, and so on and so forth. Since this series converges if and only if, so yung mga conditions natin kanina, then negative x cubed, the absolute value of negative x cubed is less than 1. So it will converge at this situation. So, nakuha nating power series dito is the series as n is equal to 0 to infinity of negative x cubed raised to n. And then, we have here the absolute value of negative x cubed will converge if it is less than 1. So, sa pagkuha natin ng interval of convergence, again, we have here, so pag may exponent yung nasa loob, hindi natin kailangan isama pa yon. So, we have x is less than 1 but greater than negative 1. So, obviously, ang ating interval of convergence are negative 1 and 1. So, the interval of convergence of this series is the same as the original series, right? So, the given 1 plus x cubed has the series 1, yung sinubstitute natin dito kanina, negative x cubed, positive x raised to 6, negative x raised to 9. So, paano natin nakukuha ito? Ipa-plug lang natin yung values ng n. So, from 0, we got 0, so it will become 1. When 1, so it will become negative x cubed. Kapag 2, negative 3 times 2 is 6. So, positive x raised to 6. Kapag 3 times 3 is 9. So, negative x raised to 9. And the next is positive, and so on and so forth. Let's take another example. So we have here the function of x squared over 4 minus x squared. So again, gagawin natin siyang kamukha nito. 1 minus x. 1 over 1 minus x. Para malaman natin kung ano yung power series ng function na ito. So first, we have, so paano ito? Parang hirap. For ito, dapat ay 1, and then sa numerator ay may, dapat ay 1, bakit may x squared doon? So, i-divide natin siya into, sa 4. para maging 1 ito. So, we have x squared over 4 all over 1 minus x squared over 4. And then, ito pwede pa nating i-simplify. So, we have the x over 2 raised to 2. Since it will become x squared and then 2 times 2 raised to 2 is 4. So, similar value. Sinimplify lang natin. So, ang x natin dito ay the x minus x over 2 raised to 2. Ito, pag ginawa natin sa power series, ay magiging x raised to n. So, ang x natin dito ay, so we have here the series as n is equal to 0 to infinity of, meron tayong x squared over 4 sa numerator. So, isasama natin siya times etong x over 2 raised to 2 times n. Since may n pa doon. So, ito yung series na nakuha natin. Eh, hindi pa nagtatapos dyan ang lahat. Pagsasama-samahin pa natin ang kanilang mga x's. X's. So, we have n to infinity. The series of, so, paano natin sasamahin ito? So, we have x raised to 2 times n plus 2. Tama? And then, it will become 2 raised to 2n is 4 raised to n. So, we have 4 raised to n plus 1. So, that's our power series. So, ang nakayuhan nating power series, the series n is equal to 0 to infinity of x squared over 4 times x over 2 raised to times n, in which the absolute value of x, which is x over 2 raised to 2 is less than 1 for the series to converge. So, inote lagi natin na kapag itong x over 2 raised to 2 is equal to 1, so, it does not converge. Kailangan lagi nating hanapin yung convergence niya. So, solving this inequality, makukuha natin, we have 1/2 since x over 2 and then the absolute value of x squared is less than yung pagkuha natin ng interval of convergence kanina. So, is less than 2. So, we have here x less than 2 but greater than negative 2. So, obviously, our interval of convergence are negative 2 and 2. So, that's our interval of convergence. And then, bigay natin siya dito. Negative 2 and 2. And kopyahin din natin ito doon. So, we have the series nakuha natin kanina. Katulad din siya nito. Pinasimplify lang natin. So, we have x. Pinagsama-sama yung mga x's. 4n plus 1. So, sa series na ito, we have the values x squared over 4 plus x raised to 4 over 4 raised to 2 plus x raised to 6 over 4 raised to 3 plus and so on and so forth. In which yung values ng x natin is less than 2. So it will converge. These are the interval of convergence. Thank you.